The Real Tragedy of Trump's Foreign Policy column. He has a good idea, but his lies, ignorance and absurd proposals ensure it won't go anywhere. Since the end of the Cold War and the demise of the Soviet Union, U.S. foreign policy has been driven by the idea that America is an indispensable nation, which must use its power and influence to shape global politics and promote American values abroad. This strategy, which some scholars call liberal hegemony, centers on two core convictions: that promoting democracy will make the world a safer place, and that military might can bring about democratic transformation by defeating terrorists, toppling anti-American regimes, and promoting international peace and stability. Regardless of administration or political party, liberal hegemony has reigned supreme in the thinking of the most senior foreign policy makers. This can be seen in the astounding fact that the United States has been at war for 2 out of every 3 years since the end of the Cold War. Even though it faces no great power threats to its homeland or interests abroad. Both pillars of liberal hegemony, democracy promotion and unbridled faith in the American military, have an abysmal record in the post-Cold War world. It was these ideas that underpinned the social engineering efforts of the U.S. to transform Afghanistan and Iraq into functional, Western-style democracies. Though the initial military successes in both countries were undeniable, policymakers ignored the historical fact that building democracy takes a long time. Just look at the U.S. itself, and is almost always homegrown. Very rarely is it the result of foreign power intervention. Instead of transforming into pro-American democracies, the Taliban controls more territory in Afghanistan today than at any point since 2001, and Iraq has descended into a full-blown religious civil war. While President Obama has generally recognized the dangers of military interventionism in the Middle East, for example, not directly involving the U.S. in the Syrian imbroglio, his greatest foreign policy missteps occurred when he abandoned his better judgment and followed the path of liberal hegemony in places like Afghanistan and Libya. Enter the Donald. Part of Trump's appeal, no doubt, is his emphasis on advancing the American national interest above all else in foreign affairs instead of pursuing the grander goals of democracy promotion and nation building. His core constituency believes that America needs to pull back from efforts at remaking the world in its image. Trump has criticized America's invasion of Iraq, though he initially supported it, scolded American allies for relying too heavily on the U.S. for their defense and not contributing their fair share to global security institutions, and repeatedly denounced the practice of nation-building. Given America's foreign policy scorecard over the past 25 years, these are sensible positions. Herein lies the real tragedy of Trump's foreign policy. Had the Republican presidential nominee focused his campaign entirely on these ideas, perhaps he could have sparked a much-needed challenge to the indispensable nation mindset that dominates Washington. Unfortunately, though, Trump's reasonable proposals have been far outweighed by his breathtaking combination of racism, hypocrisy, lies, ignorance and offensiveness. He has made absurd and utterly unworkable proposals such as banning Muslim immigration, building a border wall between the U.S. and its neighbor to the south, one which Mexico will pay for, and deporting 11 million undocumented immigrants. Trump berates the families of those who have died in service to this country and expresses affection for foreign dictators, at one point encouraging Russia to hack the computers of his democratic rival, and suggested that the solution to ISIL might lie in a nuclear attack. Unfortunately, these inane proposals, coupled with his obliviousness, narcissism, temperament and plethora of other character flaws, will likely lead many to reject all of Trump's ideas out of hand, including his very few good ones. This will also likely result in yet another victory for the forces of liberal hegemony, an approach which strongly resonates with the overall worldview of Democrat Hillary Clinton by default. In contrast to Trump, Clinton is bright, experienced, nuanced, and articulate. But if she wins, She will also bring to the White House the same philosophical dysfunctions that have underpinned American grand strategy over the last 25 years.